Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Demon Land podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me back again this week, Jack Viney. Good evening, how are you?
I'm excellent, thanks, Andy.
That's good to hear. And also joining us once again, Super Mikado. Good evening.
Hello, is this SEN?
Yes, it is. Is this who's the Melbourne fan that always calls into radio shows? Chris from Camberwell, you're on the air.
Achieve the level of high voice that he brings to the calls, but I would like to know more about the Chris from Camberwell story. So if anyone can get in contact and give me his life story, I'd be interested to hear it.
Well, yes. Well, we're back once again. Another victory, 2 on the trot. It's been a while since we had multiple victories.
At least only a few weeks this time instead of multiple seasons.
That's true. How did you boys enjoy the game? I bet at halftime the nails on your hands would have been almost bitten down to the stubs. Super Mikado?
I wasn't entirely thrilled about my decision to leave the house at halftime. I just stepped off the train as I saw that Jack Viney was out. And I kind of at the time was half tempted to turn around and just get back in the train again and go home. But I'm glad I stuck it out, like probably a more brutal version of the Essendon game. We had to get through that first half to get to the second half where we really smoked them. So all in all, a good result in the end. Still not sure it translates to good teams, but I will take it one game at a time, as they say.
Jack Viney, what about you?
Well, it's all when you have patches of play like they had in the third quarter, that first 15 minutes or 7 goals in 12 minutes, that makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? All the heartache and all the bitten fingers when you see patches like that and the dominance of Max and Clayton Oliver and Brayshaw and Petrarca with the clearances from the centre. So it was all worth it just for that brief period, wasn't it? Sensational.
I'll agree it was worth it after half-time, but I was sitting there wondering, because the Bulldogs in the first half, were smashing us at the clearances, I think in the contested possessions up to half-time, but obviously weren't making the most of it on the scoreboard. I think for the first time in a long time, the opposition had a lot more inside 50s than we did. Up to half-time, they weren't making opportunities. Do you think if we were playing a team of a higher calibre that we would have been leading at half-time?
I think that we probably made plenty of mistakes and turnovers, which they didn't adequately punish, but there's certainly a statistical anomaly the whole game because for most of the year we've dominated in those areas. And even on some occasions haven't won. But, we're beaten the other day and yet still had a convincing victory on the scoreboard. But, what do you put it down to? I don't know.
Yeah. I certainly think a team with a more accomplished forward line would have given us a lot more trouble. It's the second time we've played the Bulldogs and they've had chances, but they just haven't had anyone of any note to kick it to. So I think our defence did a reasonable job considering what was coming in. But again, I just worry that against a team with a few more forwards, I'm not looking forward to the Darling and Kennedy challenge in a few weeks' time. I think we've got to stop the ball getting down there so quickly. I think that has been our problem a bit this year, letting the ball go from one end to the other at warp speed.
Yeah, it's certainly given us lots of headaches, but it must be wrapped with the performance of one Max Gawn, especially in the third quarter. It was just beautiful to watch that some of those palm downs to Brayshaw, to Petrarca, to Harms, Oliver were just fantastic and sort of reminiscent of the Jamar Beamer combination was it 2011?
2011, where
2010.
They smacked the Crows that day. They had about 18 clearances directly from Jamar and Maloney that day. The good thing is this time it was a multi-headed beast. It wasn't just ruckman to one guy. You had obviously Brayshaw and Oliver were the key players in it, but in those centre clearances you often had a middle player. You had one time it was Petrarca in the middle, went to Brayshaw. Another time it was Harms, I think, went to Brayshaw. So it was good to have those other options in there.
Yeah, it certainly was.
And just on Harms, what a superb second half. McRae was carving us up. Goodies put Harms onto him at half-time and 10 possessions for the second half. So in addition to winning a bit of ball himself, he did a great stopping job.
Well, it was really good to see because have we really had someone to do the stopping jobs of late? Because it was a few years ago we had Vince sort of in that role, but he hasn't done that for a while. But I don't think we've really had someone to do a run with role for a while, and it's good to see that Harms was up to that task.
Mm.
I think it's good to have players who that's not just their sole role in life.
Yeah.
It's players that you can just take at a pinch, exactly like you said with this game. Identify a player who needs to be shut down and drop them onto them, but you're not reliant on just dropping someone in there for 4 quarters. And if they can't tag someone into the ground, they're not adding much at the other end. So I think it's good to have, even a Bug, potentially a Vince, depending who the target is, just having somebody who can run through a player like that if they need to.
People have been critical of the coach at times, not sort of being able to sort of have those plan Bs or, if someone's carving us up to do something about it. And I think that was a good move by him, and it worked.
Yep.
So, Clarry, we talked about last week that he could be used in a Dusty-like forward role, and didn't he relish that opportunity up there and kicked a couple of goals, and he kicked one goal, but had a hand in a couple of others as well.
That kicking was just beautiful, wasn't it? Those low bullet passes to Nibbler and to Jeffy, and then the final and probably the best one to Track in the last quarter. It's as good as it gets.
I put prior to the game last week, I put something on our Facebook page, sort of posed the question, do you think Oliver, we can play him in that resting role up forward? And there was some nuffy on there who came on and said he's a terrible kick, so no. So I posted a video.
He's always been a good kick.
I know.
That's a silly thing to have said in the past, let alone after what we saw on the weekend.
Yeah, so I posted a video of I think it was the kick that he kicked to Petrarca in the square, which was a almost 50 metre low straight onto the chest, and it was just beautiful to watch. The goal that he did kick as well was also a low kick, and I don't think it deviated from its trajectory and just split the middle.
It never looked like missing on that one, did he?
Nearly knocked David Roden onto the floor. Brayshaw really relishing sort of that longer minutes in the middle, and just having a fantastic year. Considering at the beginning of the year there were question marks on whether he'd be a regular in the team. Now I can't sort of imagine the team without him.
And I think what I noticed with him in the middle was he would get the ball and he could go either way. Like he went to go left and then he would go right. Like he's not reliant on running in one direction, so which really makes certainly coming out of the centre bounce is crucial because you get that quick break, and you don't want to be predictable about where you're going. And I think that was a really, really, that just showed the impact he can have in the middle. There are games. There was a game a few weeks ago where he had sort of 37, 38 possessions, and there was a lot of, clangers. Yeah, there was a lot of kicks that didn't hit the mark. But I think in this game, it really showed he was just right on top of what he was doing. So he's definitely. I can't see any reason why he wouldn't be part of our future other than not signing a contract.
Yeah, that's true. It'd be interesting to know where they are at that stage. I can't see him wanting to leave. I think you want to sort of be a part of what's brewing at the club. But you never know.
You only need to listen to, he's done a few interviews in the past few weeks, and you only need to listen to the way he talks about being at Melbourne and the affection he has for his teammates. He's not going anywhere, and it'll be sorted at some point, either before the season finishes or shortly after, I would have thought.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would say no chance he's going anywhere.
Now, what did you think of, he had a bit of a wayward kick, I think in the third quarter that came off the side of the boot. It did look to me that, it was a terrible kick and it wasn't given the, deliberate out of bounds by Razor Ray. But he was obviously going for the boundary line. What did you think of him giving the low five to Razor Ray? Some people in the media, particularly SEN, were calling, it was Terry Wallace, I think, who said that, that type of behaviour is not on.
Well, he just stuck his hand out.
Yeah.
Ray was the one who contacted the hand, so it shouldn't be Gus's fault. It should be Ray's fault.
Yeah, get your grubby mitts off him.
Is that the kind of stuff that we want to rub out of the game? Like, it's just, who cares? It's a nice little moment. We've all got our issues with Ray from many years of experience, but that's just the kind of stuff that if you rub that out of the game, it's just rubbing all character and interest out of the game.
Yeah, I actually didn't mind Razor Ray this weekend, maybe because he wasn't murdering us.
He did give Brayshaw one ripper of a free from about 45 metres out, diagonally across the ground, through about 8 players. And then later, when we had that big run, and I think we'd kicked the 3 in a row, the very next centre bounce right in front of one of the umpires, Brayshaw just got absolutely murdered because they obviously went, there's no other way we're going to stop this. And it's play on, no worries. Bizarre, because the other one, he must have X-ray vision to have seen whatever happened.
Yeah, he loves calling a free when he's not the main umpire. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's born for the four-man umpiring.
They should just have him in a little hovercraft hovering above the field.
And he doesn't stop talking. VAR. It's like he's a commentator. Just shut up.
The flying video referee in the future.
Well, you know what? With the rate that these mongrels of the AFL are wanting to change rules, it's probably not far off. We're just waiting on the technology.
Anything could happen. They won't even wait for the new technology. Have you seen the goal review system recently? Why bother waiting for the technology to be right? Well,
I find there's a lot of goal umpires that are very quick to go to the umpire, the third umpire or whatever it's called. Do you think that's a directive that they're told that really? I don't know. It just seems like there's no. They're told to sort of go for it. I don't know.
I think everyone's just scared of being the guy that makes a bold call and gets exposed as being wrong. It's a lot like the cricket. Even before they started reviewing absolutely everything by the looks of it. Yeah, run-outs. Has anyone actually called a close run-out in the last 10 years? It's every time it goes to the video. And then even when they show the video, the guy's about 2 metres out, but they've called it just to make sure. So, yeah. I mean, look, it's a controversial viewpoint, but I don't like video reviews in pretty much anything, unless you can have something like Hawkeye in the tennis that's very clear. I'd be prepared to wear the odd clanger here and there, and the old, you can't decide a grand final on that. Well, whatever, you know what I mean? The video referee didn't exactly help the A-League grand final when it broke down at the wrong time. So it can happen the other way as well.
Yeah, and the fact that the technology's there, that's why they're using it. So they've got the backup system, so the first instinct is to think, I'll review it rather than put my put my arse on the line.
Seems to be the way. J. Kennedy Harris, we before the game last week, we were sort of saying, it's probably his last roll of the dice. Look, I was very impressed with his tackling. I think he had 8 tackles, so that was good. But at times I thought he was a little bit lost out there in terms of sort of impact on the game. How'd you boys see Jay's performance?
Adam?
I was going to say that, look, I thought the pressure was good. I would agree with that 100%. Disposals. Look, there was a couple of decent ones. There was one, I can't remember what it was. It was to the left of screen, as they say. It was a really good kick into the forward 50. Again, I just don't fancy it to continue against the good teams, but I think he did enough to earn another go this week, and we'll see how he goes against a far more accomplished team. But yeah, not a terrible performance, but didn't excite me for his future.
And what about our other little brigade? We've got quite a few small forwards running around. We've got Spargo, Garlett. How'd you see there? Spargo also. Look, I thought Spargo was a little bit stiff in terms of not getting the what's that? It's not the Norwich Rising Star, the NAB Rising Star now. Had 7 tackles, kicked 2 goals, 14 possessions. He's got to be.
He's just
close.
unassuming the way he goes about it, doesn't it? He's just sort of no fuss, no nonsense, not very flashy, but just does all the basics really well. It's a good game from Spartacus.
Is it because he looks like
game.
He's about 35 that the judges are getting confused? I thought he was really good as well, and I thought Garlett, he kicked 2 goals.
Yeah.
That he's done his job right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference with totally different players, totally different scenarios. But you take Wiedemann in the St Kilda game, only had 10 touches, 11 touches, whatever it was, had 2 chances on goal, missed them both. Whereas Garlett, had the limited touches. He didn't have a massive amount, but he had 2 good chances on goal. He kicked the 2 goals and definitely helps with the forward pressure that we need, as in looking at that St Kilda game again, where they were just smashing the ball out at warp speed without anyone getting in their way. I think he's entrenched himself in the team again now.
And so Hannon as well. Hannon was the replacement player for Viney. And we'll talk about Viney's injury in a minute. And I might talk about this now. What did you think of Hannon coming in over, say, Tyson, who you would think would be a direct swap for a midfielder like Viney being out, but instead the club's gone for Hannon. What do you think about Tyson not getting the gig? What does that say? Great Viney, you want to tackle that?
Well, yeah, you'd be wondering, wouldn't you, if you were Dom Tyson, rather than mid for mid, they've gone mid for sort of half forward. Where does that leave him in the pecking order, and in terms of how the footy department sees him? Big question marks now, and I guess they'll see what happens at selection this week, whether he gets another crack, but definitely on the outer at the minute.
I was a bit worried when I saw that change, but I think in the end, it's hard to argue the midfield, certainly, especially in the second half. Although, to be fair, around the ground they did get pretty handily beaten in the clearances, so there's probably an argument for throwing Tyson in there, unless we think we can pull off the same amazing connection between the mids this week. Probably an argument for Tyson to get in there around the ball. Look, again, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, I've got nothing personal against Tyson. I think he's a okay player, but I think he's more midfield depth now than anything.
I think the other thing, we'll discuss changes a bit later, but Cardinia Park's very narrow, and I don't know whether you can have such a full forward line there. So I don't, Hannon can sometimes get in the way of Hogan and McDonald. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes at selection.
Yeah, it's much. I think it's the narrowest ground, if I'm not mistaken.
I just hate it when there's 50 50 people in the forward line, and there's no room for any of the magicians that are down there to do their work. They're all getting each other's way.
So, Maxi, we've got to talk about, he's leading the AFL Coaches Awards. He got another perfect 10 from the coaches. He's now 3 clear, I think, in that award. Do you think he's a genuine Brownlow chance, or a midfielder's got that sewn up? Super.
Oh, I think the fact that he floats through the forward line and especially the back line will count in his favour. I think that makes him more visible to the umpires than just your traditional tap ruckman. Also gets a lot of possession around the ground, like loose balls and stuff like that. So, look, I think the historical record says no. It says we'll all go into that night thinking he's a chance and he'll get about 9 votes. But I think there are factors in his favour that possibly haven't been in the favour of some of the other ruckmen that have been talked up over the years. He's practically our best mark in defence.
Yes.
when he gets, we almost need one of him in each of the. We need him in the ruck, and then at times, especially when T-Mac wasn't there, we could have done with him forward as a target, and we could have done with one of him in the back line to take marks as well. So I think that really helps his case.
So by my count, we need 3 Max Gorns, at least 2 Clarrys, 2 Jessies.
I'll have 2 Tom McDonalds, even though he did fail to cover himself in glory in a brief return to the back line in the first quarter last week.
Look,
took him how long to put a teammate under pressure?
Look, he's doing more than an adequate job in the forward line to forgive any of those indiscretions down back. So happy where he is. Lewis and Vince, we've talked about it a lot. Can they both play in the same team? I don't know. Do we need to bring this discussion up again?
This week will be telling.
Yeah.
Last week, I don't think. Again, I think the Bulldogs were okay. It's just that they didn't have a crack at a kick to in their forward line. It would be interesting to see if you gave them some decent forwards, what that game would look like. I think this week's going to be very telling. And I've said before, I don't think you can play both of them. But we're going to play both of them this week, and sure. We'll see how that turns out.
I mean, we'll talk about the game coming up a bit later, but the fact that we were getting smashed in the clearances around the ground, not so much in the middle of the ground, does that worry you coming up against a Geelong team that's got Selwood, Dangerfield, Ablett? We could very well get smashed in those clearances around the ground. You've got some quality players, and then they've got the forwards that they can kick it to. So,
and they can kick the goals themselves.
Yes, that too. Yeah. All right, we'll talk about that a bit later on. Any other players that we haven't mentioned that you want to bring up?
Fritsch. I love Fritsch. We may end up winning Jack Watts versus Nick Nat via an alternative method. Much like Cameron Pedersen has eventually won us the Jordan Gisbert's Brock McLean pick 11 trade, eventually via Gisbert's being swapped for Pedersen.
Yep. I like your roundabout way of thinking, but certainly I think without a Jack Watts bashing, I'm much happier with Bailey Fritsch in the team than I've had more satisfaction of Bailey Fritsch this year than I got in the however many years Jack Watts was in the team. And
his skills are next level. He's just a lovely user of the footy, hand or foot, makes the right decisions and executes perfectly.
And I just continue to be amazed by the fact that, again, dedicated Casey watchers can tell me otherwise, but wasn't he just a forward at Casey?
Yep.
And we've drafted him because he was a forward at Casey, played him in the forward line exclusively for 8-9 weeks, and then all of a sudden
he succeeded.
He's gone back to another job and he's done a perfect job. Then the St Kilda game, he went forward and kicked 4 goals. So it's been an absolute smash hit. I I wanted Watts to stay just because I sort of had that fantasy that he would
eventually
come super good and stuff his arm down the throat of his critics. But it's hard to deny now that we seem to have come out well ahead on that trade.
I mean, Fritsch has played in every position. He's played forward, back, and on the wing, and he's done and won it all so far.
That he has. And, this week he kicked 2 behind, so he, had he been kicking a little bit straighter, he would have, been a sort of utility that's kicked 2 goals in a game. He wasn't sort of playing forward when he did that, so, just all round.
Just an option.
Yeah.
It's someone who can kick a goal while they're doing another job, which is so important. And you compare him to a Hunt, and this is not a fair comparison, but it's unlikely that Hunt's going to get forward and kick a goal, whereas Fritsch probably is a little bit further up the field, just a slight bit further up the field, but he's more likely to get forward and kick goals as well. Big hit, big tick for me. As we said last week, easily the best young player. I'm not sure what the criteria is for that, because it's pretty much just best first year player with a new jumper on. But I would have thought he would be an absolute certainty for that.
If you want to join us in the conversation tonight, I should have said this a little bit earlier, but you can give us a call on 03 9016 3666. That's 03 9016 3666. Or Skype us, Demonland31. Got currently over 100 live listeners, so you can also join us in the chat room we've got going on Demonland at demonland.com/podcast. Ask us a question that way, or make a comment, and if it's something we want to read out, we'll read out. There was a bit of criticism on Demonland this week of Nathan Jones. Now, just looking at this, I thought he was a bit quiet, didn't have such an impact, but guys still racked up 19 possessions. I think some of the criticism's been a bit harsh. You can't star every single week. And as we said last week, the amount of years he spent carrying the team on his shoulders, I don't think it's time to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater.
It happens every time he has a quiet game, though. Someone jumps on Demonland and absolutely pans him. There's people on there who say he's still a remnant from the scarred era and we should get rid of him. But you see, every time he has a quiet game, someone jumps on and pans him. And he was definitely quiet on the weekend, and I think he was quiet the week before, but fair income. Give the man a break.
Yeah, there's quiet versus destructive.
A pretty good season.
Yeah, you can be quiet and you can just do your job in the background and not star, or you can get 35 touches and have 20 of them go straight to the opposition. So and that would be the case of if you did have 35 touches and 20 of them were clangers, people would be putting him in the votes just because they see the top line of the stats. So just because he's not dominating, and especially in this case, good luck getting in front of Oliver and Brayshaw, it doesn't mean that he's not playing his role. And especially with Viney out as well, my view has always been you don't need a title to be a leader, so other people should be stepping up. But certainly in the absence of Viney, I think it's really important to have him out there and just to have him as a cog in the wheel and an option, because I'll tell you that Geelong will be putting a lot of work into, especially Brayshaw.
Yeah.
Oliver's almost unstoppable at the moment, but Geelong will be putting massive work into Brayshaw this week and where Max's taps are going to go. So we need to have those alternative options there.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Melksham had a nice sort of return to welcome return to form. Thought he'd been a bit quiet for a number of weeks, but he sort of had quite a nice game. So I was wrapped with his performance.
I got a question for you guys and the chat room listeners. Melksham, I think Melksham is, when he gets the ball in his hands, does really good stuff almost every time. It just seems some weeks he just doesn't get the ball enough. So is it that we need to play through him more, or that he needs to do more for us to play through him? Because I think he's actually the most underrated key to us doing anything this season. And I know that sounds a bit strange, but he's not Gawn, he's not Oliver, he's not Hogan, but I think if he gets going, it will really help. And something I saw on Twitter where someone suggested that Garlett playing actually frees him up a bit more.
Yeah, that's a good call.
But I think when he gets the ball in hand, he usually does really good stuff. So we just need to get the ball in his hand more.
Yeah, I think he needs to be up the ground a bit more. He can sometimes end up a bit deep, but I reckon if he's up around 50 or even a bit higher, then you can use his, like Oliver on the weekend, he's a beautiful user of the footy, and you want that type of kick going inside 50.
Yeah, I think it was either the Bulldogs or the Essendon game at Docklands where he ripped this 50-metre pass diagonally across the ground to a player that would have been barely in his eyesight. It was an absolute corker, and that's what we need to, we need to free up for a bit more. But I think he can really help us do some damage if we can play through him more.
Chook in the chat room said that he thinks Melk's been carrying a bit of an ankle that he did, which I think was in the last Bulldogs game, finally looking back to full fitness. And, that could be it. What was the stat that Melksham had earlier in the year in terms of inside 50s, one-on-ones?
Wasn't it? Yeah.
So... Yep.
And he's the greatest player in the history of AFLX.
Yes.
which really sits well for his future when they have a World Sevens style circuit where you can make millions of dollars for going around playing AFLX.
I like that. Melky was good. So in terms of all Australians at this stage, do you with the exception of Maxi, obviously he's got a position sewn up in that. Do you think we've got any other genuine All-Australians who will get named this year? I reckon Jesse will get named in the squad, but whether he gets named in the final team, I don't know. Maybe not, just because they hate us.
It'll depend on the back end. That sounds obvious at one level, but he's had a few quiet weeks. Start of the year was sensational, but if it was this week, you're right, he would definitely be named and might, just be right on the borderline. But I would have thought Clarry.
Yeah, Clarry's got
firming as a. Well, firming as a certain starter.
Not that this is any indication, and some weeks I rip my hair out, but he's had a lot of that AFL Team of the Week, which is Kane Corns calling it. So, and Clayton didn't.
He said we'd win the flag, Kane Corns.
He did. So. He did. Well, that's why I'm giving him a little bit of credit. Actually, I should give him no credit for that call. But he didn't put Clayton in this week, and I think Clayton got the second highest coaches vote. So I was scratching my head with that one. I know that you can't have every Melbourne player in there when we have a decent game, but. I think he went by.
Probably a line ball call between
Brayshaw,
Oliver and Brayshaw, and he's just chosen one of them.
I would have put Oliver still on the bench even. But he's had a number of those, so I think Clarry's probably definitely going to get a nod. Neville, he's been a bit quiet in games this year. Neville always does, Neville stuff. But I think last year... he had a better year in terms of, showing, all-Australian sort of form. Even though he still does all the Neville things, you can always rely on him. But I don't think he'd be in the conversation this year.
No, I wouldn't have thought so. I reckon he's had more clangers in the last month than he did in about the 3 seasons previous. He was usually such a reliable user of the ball, and now he's just had a few clangers coming into the ball use. And look, I reckon just in general, apart from those couple of weeks when lever fever broke out, our backline has been very disorganised this year, which I don't think helps him.
Yeah. I reckon about a month ago he was in the conversation.
Yeah, he started hitting his straps, but he's been just quiet.
He's definitely made more, as Super Mikado says, definitely made more clangers in the past month than in the entirety of his career. So, he'll come good.
Not even like from a clanger perspective. I just think he's been a bit quieter. Anyway. Well, that's all Australian talk. Anyone else? I don't think there's really...
No, I mean, there's no McDonald missed too much.
Yeah.
So he'd probably get apologies. I don't think Hibbard
No,
he's been fine this year, but he hasn't been as good as he was last year. Yeah, it's sort of hard to find. I reckon Melksham, for a little bit, he started slowly, and then he had those few really good weeks in the middle. I reckon he'd be Melksham would be like McDonald. They'd be in not your 40. They'd be, if there was a preliminary squad, a 60 or something. Yeah. They'd be worth a mention in that.
Yeah.
But I don't really think there's going to be too much in the first team.
Did any of you boys get to see Casey this week? I didn't, so I can't speak on that. Were we on?
No, not at all.
We weren't on TV this week.
No, or on their live YouTube thread.
The only thing I've seen from that game is Vandenberg's absolute belter of a kick that went 900 metres. Did you see that one, Super Mikado?
Yes, that was a Casey Field special. I don't know if there was. I'm assuming there was a gale force 10 wind blowing to that engine, and if he'd tried to kick it the other way, it would have probably gone back over his head. But it's great to see him really coming back into senior footy like he never left, just providing us another option for the back end of the season.
Does it have a name, the wind down at Casey? Is the gale called something in particular, like the Fremantle Doctor?
I think it's like the freezing doctor. I went down there for a VFL game once, and I left at halftime because it was so cold. It was painfully cold. So
can be open to the elements, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's at least the opposition got a goal this week.
Yes. Any players in Casey pushing, for senior selection this week?
Weed had a very good second half by all accounts. Kicked 4 goals after being, I think, a bit quiet in the first half. So whether that puts him back in contention, I don't know. Does Goodwin abandon the 3 tall forward experiment for the moment?
Yeah, I don't know if we'd be going for another tall option up forward for this game.
Especially, as we say, on the narrow ground.
Yeah.
I saw Tyson was the top possession getter with 25, which almost seems like quite a low top possession getter these days. There weren't that many. I think there was only about 3 players that had over 20 possessions. Pedersen and one of the Wagners.
It's the other Wagner, I think.
It was a very odd stats line not to see someone in the 30s in this day and age. Baker had 12. I'm pretty keen to see him get a run at some point in the near future, but as you say, maybe on a narrow ground is not the best place for someone who's going to, job is to dash up and down the wings. But I certainly think that, I'd like to see him get a game towards the end of the year. If obviously, depending on how the season's going, if we lock into a really good team that's in form, you don't want to mess with that. But I think if he doesn't get a game end of this year, he'll probably get a game early next year.
Yeah, you'd think so. I wonder how far Vanders is off getting a game. Obviously needs to get the fitness up, but he's had 20 disposals. He's kicked a massive goal, 8 tackles as well, which is good to see. You'd think he wouldn't be too far off, but obviously then would probably, as you say, if we've locked into a good winning team, it might be tough to get in. But those sort of small forwards sort of rotating in and out, sort of one form. So
yeah, that's the other question with Vanders is where would he play largely? Are you thinking of him in a forward role or does he go into the middle?
I think we talked this last week, didn't we, Super? Yep. With they've been playing him in the middle. I have always sort of seen him as a half forward, and I don't know whether he's got the pace to go in the middle, but haven't seen enough of him since he's come back. I haven't seen.
It's been so long, I've almost forgotten what he can do.
Is Harley Ballick, is he injured at the moment? I'm not seeing his name on that list.
I don't think he played.
Not injured.
No, I don't think he played last week.
Someone did say on his thread that, and I don't know whether it was this week or when it was, that he was late to training.
Ooh, okay.
Never a good sign.
No.
Which is a no-no, isn't it? So,
especially when the club's taking a punt on him.
Sorry?
Especially when the club's taken a punt on him after
that's right.
whatever issues and coming back to Melbourne and all that kind of stuff. And look, maybe he was stuck in traffic behind a semi-trailer, who knows? But let's hope that's all it is.
Yep.
That's pretty big to miss a game.
Yeah, I not that I'm disappointed, but I thought that we might have seen him at some point during the year, but it seems like that's not going to happen this year, barring some turnaround in form or something.
I think there's plenty of others ahead of him in the queue at the moment, so yeah.
So that's Casey. Injuries. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how devastated were you when you heard about Jack Viney?
22 out of 10.
Yeah. I almost turned around and got back on a train and kept going. So
to the end of the line.
Yeah. Fortunately, I live at the end of the line, so that wouldn't be such a bad thing.
So then he had the sort of story about it came out. He had a press conference the other day. Seems like this has been a few weeks coming that he's had that pain or uncomfortable feeling in his toe, and then went and got scans. But he mentioned that even before the Fremantle game, he sort of had the pain. Should he have played then? Did he not learn his lesson from last time?
I don't think it's so much a case of mismanagement by either him or the club, but the real worry is that he's really only had a few weeks where it's been right. Excuse me. He was only back for a few weeks and then he started experiencing pain again. So that's the big concern, isn't it? That it really hasn't been good for a very long, long time.
And not to get into conspiracy corner, but on the day it said he alerted our team that he was having discomfort on Friday, and then when Jack did his media conference, he was like, "Oh yeah, it's been hurting for weeks."
Yeah.
So are we to read from that he sort of just kept it to himself for a few weeks, rather than bringing it up ASAP?
That's what it sounded like to me. It sounded like he had felt the pain, but maybe he hadn't. Maybe he hadn't said anything yet. I don't know.
It's kind of I've just looked it up here. It says Jack alerted our medical team to some discomfort he was experiencing in his toe late on Friday, which is kind of like a real, it's not our fault. Yeah. Just to let you know, it's not our fault. We didn't know about it. Don't blame us if he plays through it and his foot falls off. Now, carefully worded statement.
Did we talk last week about preemptively cutting off toes at this club?
So there's an epidemic. That's three this year.
Yeah, was that
plus the great Sam Frost debacle from 2 or 3 years ago?
So that was before the news of Viney his current injury. So maybe if they'd cut off his toe on Wednesday, he would have been.
Well, he already had it though. Apparently, he's had it for several weeks. So if he was listening in last week, maybe that's what convinced him to put his hand up and admit it to the club.
So
but it's certainly an odd epidemic to have three toe victims in one season.
Greg Viney might want to grab a glass of water there.
Excuse me.
Might want to grab a glass of water.
I'm just trying to, yes. I think I'm right now.
You're right. Okay. In terms of injury list, we're still pretty healthy in comparison to some other teams that have sort of a whole raft of players and injuries. I've just
a lot of big name injuries the past few weeks, haven't there? See, Sicily tonight's out for the rest of the season for Hawthorn.
Yeah, Nick Nat
and Jack. So yeah, some big names.
So I've just noticed on our injury list it has been updated now. Dion Johnston is also on there now. He's got a quad, bit of test. Joel Smith, did he play in the twos this week, or was he out with the hip that he?
I think
I don't think he did.
Yeah. So we've still got Billy out and Jack. So, but no new injuries from the weekend of players in the team. So changes this week. What do you think, boys? Any forced changes in terms of form? Going through the Casey list, I don't know.
I think from the Casey side, look, the only, just from the stats, and you got to take them with a grain of salt. Tyson looked like the only one that really dominated. Pedersen had a lot of touches, but they're playing him as a backman. We've got no need for him to do that at the moment. So I would probably have Tyson in for Hannon. I just because I'm nervy and just can't see us pulling off the same spectacular rampage as last week. So I'd just like to have another option in there and have someone around the grounds to crash in. I am wary of a 2-week delayed post-Darwin effect.
Well, we'll talk about the Darwin effect because it didn't seem to worry us. I was a little worried in the first half, and I thought we're going to drop off in the second half due to Darwin.
Yep.
Obviously, given our third quarter, that didn't. And even though in the fourth quarter we didn't play like the third, we still sort of had control and didn't look like we dropped off. And you have a look at the Fremantle game against Port. They sort of looked all right and played out the game well. So is the Darwin effect null and void, or is it just an anomaly?
Yeah, well, the Perth game, the Fremantle game was a bit of a slog over there.
In the first half, yeah.
In the wet, so, yeah.
So
they basically had to double up on it.
I think the fact is it's hard to tell because all the years we were crap, we came back and played crap. Apart from probably 2011, which I remind you that 2 games after Darwin we played at Cardinia Park, and we all know what happened on that day. But apart from that year, all the years we've been crap, we've played badly. After Darwin, 3 years now we've been at least mid-table. We've won twice and we've lost once to the grand finalist. So whether it is real or not, it certainly comes out as a crap standard of game. But on the same front, I think as we said last week, we pocketed $1.2 million and won by 150 points. So overall, it's hard to argue with Darwin and the Northern Territory this year.
Yeah, it's been a win this year. Do you have? This might be stretching your stats a little bit, but how have generally how have other teams gone? The teams we've played in Darwin, how have they gone in the following weeks?
No idea, no interest.
Okay.
No interest in other teams, but I can tell you since 2010 we were before this week we were 1-7 the week after returning from Darwin and 2-6 the week after. But like I said, most of those years we were, usually 1-7 over any particular stretch of 8 weeks if we were lucky. So I'm not sure we can really draw any conclusions to it. But yeah, certainly, 2 weeks after Darwin 2011, we went off to Cardinia Park and it all went horribly wrong. So if we get thumped here, I'm bringing up the delayed onset theory again.
And we are going back to Cardinia Park. So is there any chance we can do a reverse 186 to them?
Those going would not get out alive if that happened. They would be... Yeah, they'd be dead at half time, I'd say.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
What a way to go. 110 points in front at half time.
Because I've said it on the podcast before, I've got 3 nephews, all Geelong, and we have we've got a bet this year. I've just kept Grapevine back on. The Skype. Grapevine, are you there?
Yes, I'm back.
Yeah. For some reason, Skype has a new interface, and it's taken away all the settings, which include the sounds that I had previously disabled, have all come back on.
More unnecessary changes than the AFL rulebook.
It's even worse because since I think Microsoft, since they took over Skype, Microsoft are just as bad as the AFL. Yeah, so I've got
it's their product to ruin.
That's right. Yes.
Not ruining a product that they inherited anyway.
So I've got 3 nephews. We've got a bet this year, and I made a bet at the beginning of the year that we would finish higher than them on the ladder at the end of the home and away season. And the result of that bet means whoever finishes higher, if I lose, I have to wear at the next family dinner that we have, I have to wear a Geelong jumper. In turn, if we finish higher, these 3 boys and their father have to wear a Melbourne jumper.
What if you do, and we hope you don't, what Geelong player will you be portraying? Brent Gergich? Tom Gillies? Clint Bizzle?
What's his name? Who's the fella?
Shannon Burns.
Jared
Shannon
Burns.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping, and we'll talk about the ladder predictor at the end. I was very happy. Put it this way, I was very happy that Adelaide won this week because, and I'm spewing that we lost after they lost to the Bulldogs. I'm spewing that we didn't knock off the Saints because we would have had a 2-game buffer going into the game against them.
So I think everything went in our favour this week except GWS winning, which will probably ultimately be the one that costs us the most. So I was fuming with that last centre clearance for Richmond where they just basically conceded defeat.
Yeah.
That might come back to haunt us, I think.
The games all turned out well, and I think Great Viney, you called it a few weeks ago when you sort of said, there'll be upsets and other games, and gee, there's been a few upsets. And
Brisbane might cause a few more on the way home. They seem to be hitting a bit of form at the moment.
Not only are they hitting form, but they're not lying. Some of those teams in the bottom, half sort of lie down at the end of the year and barely put up a fight. And looks like who have they got?
I've got it here. They've got you like this: the next 4 weeks: Adelaide, Geelong, North Melbourne, Collingwood. So
that's our season right there.
If they could do a bit of damage, and then West Coast and Gold Coast and West Coast in the last 2, so they're irrelevant.
Where are they?
In the next 4 weeks, if they could knock off a couple of those, that'd be nice.
Where are they playing Adelaide?
In Brisbane.
Okay, all right, that's nice.
So they're a chance.
That would be a good one because that would sort of put. That's Adelaide this week.
Yep, and then they've got North at home as well.
Okay, all right.
That would be a very useful one for us too.
Yeah.
If they knock off Adelaide this week, that almost puts Adelaide out for good, which then impacts the way they come into the game against us the following week. So there's all those knock-on effects with momentum and confidence and things like that.
You say that, but I said the same thing about Collingwood in round 23. that didn't work out well for us.
Well, let's hope there's a tackle laid in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And
to be fair, sorry on that game. To be fair, Collingwood did enter that game with a laissez-faire attitude. They did pick a first gamer who I don't think's ever played another game since. It's unfortunately it was us, not them, in that case. So big lessons to be learnt this year. And
another lesson is I don't think we can rely on other teams winning because remember what Adelaide did to us in the last round last year when they laid down in round 23.
And I think we've discussed a couple of weeks ago, the last round, there's no favours in the last round apart from Sydney versus Hawthorn. You've got Adelaide plays Carlton, Geelong plays Gold Coast, North Melbourne plays St Kilda, and Collingwood plays Fremantle in Perth, and Port Adelaide plays Essendon. Port could be dragged down into the mire, but I can't see it happening. But we're not getting any favours out of that collection except for Sydney Hawthorn.
I've had a look at the run home. Port actually have a very difficult run home.
Yeah, could easily drop right out.
I think they've just got enough in the bank that will save them. But yes, correct. But from our perspective, I think I'm quite happy for them to beat GWS this week. And they can solidify their position at GWS's expense.
Yeah. I think GWS are shaping up to be, along with West Coast, our hardest opponents in the run home. So,
and that's our 2 last games.
I think and I want you want everything to be squared away before round 23, because Cameron will be back by then, and they could be really hitting their straps. Look like they're getting that way at the moment.
And look, I don't see any way that we can lock it in before round 23 unless we pretty much win everything until then. But again, strange things can happen. You've got that North Melbourne West Coast game in Hobart that's going to be so pivotal. If North
I think we can win the next 4.
We're in trouble.
I think we will win
North.
the next 4.
You're very, very confident, Great Viney. I sometimes wonder to your sanity. When
I think we're going to start hitting our straps.
We've got, look, there's no doubt about it now. We haven't taken a scalp this year. Correct? I don't think you can call Adelaide, when at the form they were in, a scalp. And we're going to need to take at least 2, including beating the Suns. We need to win 3, you would think, to lock it away.
I would say 3 plus the Suns.
Oh,
to make absolutely certain of it.
3 including the Suns, or 3?
No, 3 and the Suns. I think we need 4.
You think we need 14 wins to get in, and our percentage?
Sorry, that's 13. I've stuffed my maths there. So 3. Sorry.
Yes. So
we need to beat 2 of Adelaide, Geelong, West Coast, got GWS,
Sydney
to be absolutely not even to be absolutely sure. I'm because GWS could finish 13 wins and a draw, and finish 8th depending on how things go, which is probably unlikely, but it's definitely a live possibility at the moment. I think when you get those ladders where there's a couple of teams at the bottom who lose every week, and the top isn't someone who's going to be 20-2 or something like that, it does bunch up the middle a lot. I did the maths this week to see teams that missed the 8 on 12 wins. And not surprisingly for cliche fans out there everywhere, the only team previously to do it twice was Richmond. Mm-hmm. But at least that was about 5 years apart, not twice in a row.
Well, I'm trying.
And if we miss, we'll miss with the largest percentage in VFL, AFL history. But it's funny watching the Richmond GWS game on the weekend, because it looked like it could have been a draw at one stage, and that's what I was hoping for, because then it would have evened up GWS's point situation and taken away that potential
definitely better than
2-point advantage.
I'm trying to open up the ladder predictor on the AFL site, because I was playing around with it sort of during this round. So when I was doing it, I can't remember how many games had already been played. It was after our win. But there was a scenario where after the next 2 rounds, if we lost the next 2, we could have been 10th on the ladder. Remarkable.
Yeah, I can understand that, because you got Adelaide just around the mark. You got Hawthorn, GWS. Effectively, you've got 6 teams playing for the last 3 spots in the top 8. So I think there's every possible chance. Doesn't mean we're going to finish 9th if we miss. Could be 10th. In extreme circumstances, if we lose to Adelaide, could even be 11th.
And yet, if we win on Saturday night, by the end of the round, we could be in 4th.
If we win Saturday night, it's on.
I'll have
free your September up.
Yeah, I'd have a lot more confidence if we can win on the weekend.
Yeah,
but
that will get them going. That'll throw the mini monkey off the back, that they can take a scalp, especially in hostile territory, and it will most certainly be on after that.
Yeah, I'd love to know who made this draw for us, because it's definitely a tough run home.
And I must say, I've been thinking this the whole time, ever since the draw came out. I think the things you look at on the draw are the first game and the last game. And then when I sort of worked the way back from the last game, I was like, oh, that's a hard last game. Then it was like, Jesus Christ, we're going to have to be in a very strong position when it comes to the last few weeks of the season if we're going to make the 8. I think we're pretty much where I expected us to be. You could throw in the St Kilda win, but potentially from the start of the season subtract the Adelaide win. So we probably are in about the same place I thought we'd be at the start of the season. And look, I had a 7th on the ladder, but in a tight bracket from about 6th to 10th.
Yeah, the good thing is that with the tough draw at the end, it effectively means if we're going to play finals, we're going to come into finals in pretty good form.
Yeah.
There's not going to be any of this, late 80s, early 90s limping in at the last minute in the final round. So, if we're good enough, we'll get there and hopefully be in good nick when it happens.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to get in earning it, which this is in no way to say that we're going to be a premiership team, but if you look at a Bulldogs 2016, that's where you want to be. You want to be coming in. I know they lost a slop fest last round game against Freo before that, but they got it. They were in that form that they could carry on, as opposed to like North a couple of years ago, who were going down at 1,000,000 miles an hour and just fell into the 8. I think if you could guarantee me a spot in there, I'd rather the coming in on a rolling start rather than the just scraping in.
Yep.
I've just redone my next 2 weeks predictions, but I've given us the loss in both games and puts us in 9th position if we do lose the next 2. And other results don't go our way. So,
yeah. Well, my as you know, my ladder predictors are always extremely conservative, and I've got us losing the next 2 but beating GWS. So effectively, you say 1-1, and then we lose the last game, and I've got us 10th on 12 wins, a game and a half behind GWS in 8th.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, Jack Viney's got us finishing 3rd.
2nd, yeah.
And that's the better way to be, I think. That's the better way to live your life.
Well, these next 2 weeks are definitely going to be sort of guide. Will certainly be a guide of where we're at, and if we do lose them, it's going to be very hard to get back on the horse. We're not even factoring in a surprise loss to Gold Coast.
Even I can't contemplate that, but deep down, I know that it's a live chance.
Well, just think back to, was it 2 or 3 years ago now, on that Sunday afternoon when it required Jack Watts to kick the winner and then stop them kicking a sealer.
Yes.
At the death, and in what was probably one of the worst spectacles of football ever to take place at the G.
There was 2 great things about that game. One was Tom Lynch missing after Bernie Vince kicked it out on the full, but 2 was the Gold Coast guy who had a flying shot from 50 metres out, and the ball rolled left out of bounds, and they paid deliberate against him. And then we still managed to cock up the free kick and give them a goal.
Yep.
Oh, we always do that.
Very memorable moment from that day. But look at that season where, with 2 games to go, we were highly unlikely to get in, but we at least needed to beat rock bottom Carlton to get into the last round as a 1,000,000-to-1 shot, and shit the bed, quite frankly, in that game. So that's why I know that the side is a lot better than they used to be. But still, that Gold Coast game, I'm factoring in as a win. But gee whiz, if it all sort of rests on that, I'll be very nervous.
If you want to join us in the last leg of this show, 0390163666. That's 0390163666, or Skype us on Demonland31. Perhaps you can give us your ladder predictor, who you think will win against. Guys, there's a few milestones coming up this weekend. Jake Melksham plays his 150th game. Angus Brayshaw plays his 50th game. And Nathan Jones his 100th game as captain. I believe it's 5th in the club's history.
Yep, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And Melksham would obviously be on 172 games if Essendon hadn't stitched him up.
That's correct.
Just goes to show with Gus, though, doesn't it, that he's playing some super footy and he hasn't even hit 50 yet.
Yeah.
And don't forget he's missed a lot of football as well. with these concussion issues. So, it's great to see him back in. It's like having a new recruit almost.
And you don't notice, you notice the helmet, but you wouldn't know that he's had this issue with concussion and had to basically change the way he approached his footy, would you? I mean, he's hard as nails.
Oh, absolutely.
And came out of a troubled sort of off-season start of the year. His mystery wisdom teeth complaint, which was just a classic Melbourne novelty injury, and then starting the season in the twos. So it's not like he stormed the pre-season and we all thought, this is going to be massive. There were still questions about him, and his habits absolutely come good.
That he has. Super Carter, you want to plug your various stuff?
Most certainly. You can catch me on Twitter at DemonBlog, on the blog at demonblog.com, and of course demonwiki.org, your home for irrelevant Melbourne Football Club statistics, and see what the club's own historical articles are going to look like.
Yes.
Well before they post them.
There was a part 2. Was that also?
I didn't even see the part 2, to be honest. But I'm pretty sure that there would have been some of those obscure stats that were previously ripped off for Demon Wiki from somewhere. They would have got another run. But like I said last week, it's not like it's original stuff that I've written. But I just think that it would be good for the club to let people know that the site is out there, given that it's not. There's nothing scandalous about it. Unlike the blog, where there's plenty of scandalous stuff on it.
I was reading your blog this week. It was a very detailed description of the match. So, guys, do have a read of that blog.
If you've got several hours to spare on a weekly basis.
And what do you know? Talk about serendipity. I've just called up the Demon Wiki page to see who the random image of the day was, and it's Brent Grgic.
There you go.
Of all people.
Of all the 8,000 odd photos that are on there.
Yes. The great man.
I'm going to go for a random image myself. I've got Tony Dullard looking stoned off his brain on a Scanlon's 1982 football card.
They're the ones that the back of them formed a big picture altogether. That Scanlon series, didn't they?
Oh. On the front, Tony looks like he's very intently trying to work out how the jigsaw goes, because he's just kind of like staring into middle distance. It's not the craziest Melbourne card I've seen, but he certainly looks sedated.
My random image is a picture of the old red seats in the Olympic stand. Missed those days, the red seats. They were great fun back in the day.
I'm going to go for another random image, because last time it's a playing card of, I've got to click through, I can half see them, Kevin Dyson, 1995, just about to get onto a kick on the right foot with a Collingwood player trailing behind him and what looks like absolutely nobody in the background. So I wondered, did we play the Pies in a practice game or something in 95 where they might have grabbed that shot for his card? That was in the middle of my teenage misery. That was just before I entered my teenage misery phase and pulled the pin on footy. We played a practice match against Collingwood, the last practice match of that season. A 79-90 loss at Waverley. Attendance unknown. But Jeff Farmer was fined $1,500 for using an insulting gesture towards an umpire.
Well, that's got to be the bird.
But wouldn't that be an offensive gesture?
What did they call it?
An insulting gesture.
Oh, okay.
So, maybe it was like tapping the head or something. But $1,500 back then, that's a bit rich. $1,500 in 1995, you could almost buy a house for that.
So, Super Garda, you're going to be travelling down the highway to the game this week?
Against my better judgment, yes, I will be. I'm hoping that good things happen because really. I looked up my my record at Cardinia
I was going to
Park.
ask, what's your plus minus?
I think it was about minus 400 and something. So I've worked out, I went there for the 2005 and 15 wins, and I went there for losses in 99, 2002, 3, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 16. So it's, yeah.
Maybe you should stay home.
That's true, but I'm hoping for the spirit of 2005, 2015. I'm not sure if the spirit of 2006 and we get a draw, if that's going to help at all.
No,
it'll certainly negate our percentage.
Yes, it throws that out.
So I think we'd, it would be better than a loss, but at the same time, because it would put us back into the race against GWS. But yeah, I'll certainly take a win. And I must say, if it gets to that point where a draw's on the cards, I'll probably have dropped dead out of tension anyway.
Well, it's been fun. Anything else, boys? Anything else you want to bring up before we close the door on another show?
It's been nice knowing you if I do keel over and die at Cardinia Park. Spread my ashes on row MM of the Ponsford stand, please.
Well, the reason we were doing the show tonight rather than the usual Wednesday fare, tomorrow night we got the three of us are participating in a players sponsor trivia night event. Hopefully we'll be teamed up with Maxi Gorn as I sponsor him. So yeah, that could be.
He'll be able to cheat by saying "Okay, Google."
Oh, that's true.
Let the sponsor product.
What do you think of the Gorny Google ads?
I rank them higher than Jack Watts for Energy Watch. Look, okay, Google, just set up my phone. Set off my phone. I rank it higher than Jack Watts for Energy Watch and probably higher than Mitch Clark for Ultra Tune as well. As far as great MFC ads go, I'm pretty satisfied with it. I was trying to think the other day, have there been any others? And I'm sure they would have. Like Jimmy Steins would have been in an ad at some point. But from that modern era, they were the couple I could think of.
Mm.
Yeah, I actually think he does a pretty good job. Just in general, Gorney seems quite at home in front of the camera.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got a media career. If they can shepherd the footy show through for another 10 years, he'll be hosting it.
But he'll be on something, I reckon, going forward. Once his playing career's over, is a lock.
The only issue I have with those Google ads is that if you notice the one where he says, I'm not going to say it again because I'll set my phone off, but he says, play Max Gorn highlights.
Yeah. And
it shows him kicking one of the goals from the boundary against Essendon, but it's not the one where he goes and gives it to the peanut in the crowd afterwards.
Yeah.
That is he's been screwed by Google on that. Because we all know that they were both fine goals, but the real winner was the one where he went and just laughed in that bloke's face. So just a bit of free feedback there if you're the Google people putting your ads together.
They could have tried to go for a bit more comedy with that and instead of showing a highlight, shown the one that he missed against Geelong.
He might have refused to participate. He might have walked out of his own ad.
Well, and then the one against Freo as well. Play it again, Sam. Or play it again, Google.
It's funny, he's a 50-50 prospect in front of goals because sometimes he'll just dob them from quite far out and other times he'll just miss it. So
He's got the Travis Cloaks. Like, the closer he is, the more concerning it is.
Yep.
I remember back to his first game where he basically missed one from the square.
We spoke to him about that on this podcast last year.
But the good thing was, by the time that happened, we were already, we'd already won that game, so it could be treated as comedy rather than a complete debacle.
I don't think he liked it when you brought that up, Andy.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
He seemed a bit,
He didn't like it.
Seemed a bit put out by it.
I couldn't tell whether it was just Max being Max or whether he was actually annoyed at it. But no, Max, he's
might
a great
come up
bloke.
in the trivia night.
How many?
Jack Watts took a ripper of a mark on someone's back. Dean Bailey punched the roof of the box, and as he punched the roof of the box and all the water flew off, at first I thought he'd smashed it because I saw his hand go to it on the screen, or maybe I was looking across. I don't know. I was somewhere deep in the Ponsford stand. And I thought, bloody hell, he smashed it. And then I realised it was water coming off the top of it. But, gee, what a conclusion to the game that would have been. Coach punches hole in box.
Now, what do you think? I'll just bring this up because I just saw it on Demonland. Brent Harvey on radio the other day says Melbourne will lose Jesse Hogan. Now, he's used no facts, nothing. It's even barely an opinion of his.
It was barely an opinion because it was one sentence, and he says, I think, I don't know if it'll be this year, next year, or the year after that. So at some stage in the future, Jesse will go back home. I mean, fair income.
The only facts that he used in that is the fact that Jesse is from WA.
Yeah. Yep.
But you can't trust an SEN ad or SEN like social media post that is anyone's opinion, because I just feel like they must have a KPI.
It is.
For having something outrageous that's clickbait to get people through. It just seems to happen dozens of times a week.
He's still made that comment, but yes, SEN are famous for that, and I understand because I often take their news things and put it on Demonland for the same reason, to get, well, not necessarily to get clicks, but to get people discussing it. More obviously, the more people
there are always provocative things that will get people's hearts racing.
That's right, and I like to put it on because it gets discussion on the site. The more people discussing, obviously, more people looking at ads and blah 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 blah. But so I understand why they do that.
Would you have put that one up? Because you didn't put this one up, but would you have put it up?
I was going to, but I was so angry at it, I actually didn't, because I just.
I nearly closed the thread down. It almost didn't warrant a thread.
No,
it didn't warrant a thread at all.
No, my theory is if something's in the media and they're discussing the D's, good, bad, stupid, whatever, put it up for discussion, whatever, and let people sort it out.
Or just hang it on them for being.
Yeah, or just get up and call them, put it up and use it so people can call him a nuffy.
But the posters out there don't use the same wording as a headline.
No, I changed that.
That has our captain on the sidelines for a month, and would have given people heart attacks about Jesse Hogan.
Well, that's what I thought when I saw it, so I'll just let the listeners who didn't know and hadn't seen it. So we had a thread up there about Jack Viney, and the thread title was Losing Jack Viney. So whoever's put up this article about Jesse, well, it's not even really about Jesse, it's just some ex-footballer's opinion, has also used that same thing, losing Jesse Hogan. So I immediately thought that Jesse's got an injury and he's out for the rest of the year. So I quickly changed that to a more appropriate thing.
Wise move.
Yeah. So yeah, if you are creating threads, please don't use a title that's completely misleading and likely to cause people to have heart attacks, because I'm sure in some court that someone will I'll get charged for.
But you could get a job at SEN.
Yes, you definitely. Definitely.
Do it for them instead.
I'm just going to find there was a post on Facebook, on that Facebook post that SEN made. Someone wrote to their thing about Jesse leaving, said, agree, he'll move back in his media career. That time when ex-players start talking shit to fill the airtime. I thought that was a good one, so congratulations whoever wrote that.
Yeah.
That was a nice one. All right, boys, anything else? Any other interesting demon information that came up this week that I might have missed?
No, we got to focus on finals now. There's no mucking about with funny business on the side. Just concentrate on the footy.
A lot of people are talking about who we target at the end of the year. I gather it's too early for us on this podcast to talk about stuff like that. Now that Sloane's, well, I don't think we're ever going to go after Sloane. Is Gaff still out there?
Yep.
Well, I guess later in the year we'll talk about who we target. Let's try and get into the finals first. I don't even like that F word at the moment.
Yes, let's try and win this week first.
Yeah, let's take it 1 week at a time. All right, boys. I think we might hang up the boots there. Let me find this theme music. I will say before we go, if you're listening to this via SoundCloud, you can download or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. Just go into iTunes and put in Demonland Podcast. You'll find it, subscribe, and it'll be sitting there waiting for you each Wednesday. You can follow us on Twitter at Demonland. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Demonland31. Find us and subscribe to us on YouTube. We put up all the interviews that we do on this podcast up onto YouTube, or you can find them on demonland.com/interviews. All right, with that, go Demons, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you again.
Go Days.